and welcome to the LMS Show. Give yourselves a big hand. Hey! Oh, I got my dashiki on. You like? Woo! Right. Oh, I can't stand myself. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to the LMS Show. We're from Sisters Uptown Bookstore and Cultural Center. Give them a big hand. And the public access, we're not advertising. We support institutions, and this is an institution. And we have to keep our institutions and keep our legends alive. That's what we do here at LMS. We keep them alive all the time. We keep them alive above the ground, and so unfortunately sometimes below the ground too, but we still, the memory still lingers on. I remember I was at the senior center one day, and one of the aides to the borough president, I won't name the borough, nothing like that, because I like what they said. They were talking about, like in New York City we have about affordable housing, and they said in order for you to qualify for affordable housing, they gonna make a credit check on you. And if your credit ain't together, you're not going in. Well, you ain't going in anyway. But credit plays a very big part, and we hope that the law that they have in effect right now, that don't get lost in the shuffle. And Katrina Phillips, give Katrina Phillips a big hand, everybody. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because this is debt collection, right? Tell us a little bit about the Federal Debt Collection Act.
Okay. Well, the Fair Debt Collection Practices
Act. Say it loud, everybody here.
Practices Act is a 1978 law enacted by Congress. It's actually a federal law, and it was enacted by Congress to protect consumers from abusive, deceptive, and unfair debt collection practices by third-party debt collectors.
Also, too, even if that's a third party, like if your landlord, somebody saying you are dispossessed, that you got 30 days to answer, right?
Right. So it's anyone outside.
Because he's using a third party, right?
Right. So it's anyone outside of the original creditor, the one who extended the loan or line of credit to you.
I remember Willie D and I was talking down our favorite place, playing some music the other night. And he brought up a topic. Willie D, what was that you said about debt collection? You said what you said about it?
You got something in his mouth.
You got something in your mouth?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's a good one.
Yeah, go ahead. You're not coughing on me, right? You're not doing Hillary, right?
Wow. Refresh me a little bit.
We were talking about that the debt collectors can't just collect anywhere. They have certain they have certain laws in New York.
Right. About sometimes they'll come and they'll try to like hold your thing on lien and all that. They not even have license.
Tell us about that.
You have to be licensed.
Right. Thank you, Willie.
That's good that he caught on to that, because outside of the federal law, outside of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, each state, well, not some, let's just say some states may have additional laws outside of the federal law. So it could be a state or local law. So for example, in New York City, a debt collector has to be licensed to collect debt from citizens of New York City. But then you may go to another town or village inside of New York, and that area doesn't have a local law. It just has the federal law. So this spans out through some of the states in the United States. It doesn't apply to all, because in order to collect debt, it could either be where you have to get a license, bond, or pay a fee.
But New York City, they do that, right?
In New York City, it's a license, bond, yes. Mm-hmm.
Because also too, they had something too. I was cleaning up one the other day, and they had. I thought this book's a crazy book, but the book talks about about people making money off of your debt. Like, say you don't pay a certain amount of time. Like, say you have a department store, you didn't pay the department store, and 90 days, whatever it is, they give it to somebody else, and people collect these debts and try to collect off you, right?
Right, so that would be a third-party debt collector, or what's referred to as a debt buyer. They make money off of delinquent debt. So basically, I refer to it as recycled debt. So say, for instance, debt collection A agency wasn't able to collect on the delinquent debt, then they'll turn it over to collection agency B. So it's basically like it's being recycled. But the problem with that is, most of the times, these debts are being sold with little to no information. So let's just say you lived at 123 ABC Street 3 years ago. So then, let's just say the creditor sells the debt. Then, between that time, you may have moved. So what's happening is, the debt collector who purchased the debt is going after you at the last known address. And a lot of times, a lot of people are being called into court, but they don't know that they had to go to court. So that's referred to as sewer service. The debt collector will allege that the process server served you, but in fact, the process server did not serve you. So a lot of times people find out that they have a judgment, which is referred to as a default judgment, meaning that you did not appear in court. So that goes back to what the gentleman had said. So a lot of times they'll go after your property, put a lien on your property because you didn't appear in court. So it's just like, almost like you ignored the debt. But it's like you ignored that you had to be in court. But the problem is, a lot of consumers never knew they had to be in court. That's happened to me a lot of times.
You know how to handle it, though. You said, but what you do, you said like they advertise on the radio. They talk about many times about you go to these people and they fix it up for you. You could fix it up yourself, right?
Yes. Oh, you're referring to our conversations about credit repair companies, because according to the Federal Trade Commission, which is the largest agency that advocates for consumers, according to them, and a lot of people have experienced this, not so good experiences with credit repair companies. A lot of times they have a bad rep and being known to take your money and not be able to provide the service that they allege to provide to you, like to clear up your credit, and it's actually something that you could do on your own, clearing your credit.
Don't you get a report? You can get a report once a year on your credit, right?
Yes, you can get a copy each year for free from there's 3 credit bureaus that you can actually get them from, and do a comparison, of the credit reports that you order to see what's on your credit.
Because sometimes they get 10 minutes. 3 minutes, I got
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Very valuable information, and we're gonna bring you back again because I think that we need that, as a consumer, as consumers, and by, we're going through some, we're gonna go through, and mention no names, that we're going through some, cause I don't want to date my shows. We're going through, every year is a difficult times. You have to have it, you have to have it together, though, right? On that note, I'd like to thank you so much. What's that name again? This is my buddy.
The Fair Debt Collection Practices Act.
It's
very important.
And make sure they don't gut this out because your goose is cooked. You don't have to worry about Thanksgiving turkey because you're gonna be the turkey. Thank you so much. Katrina Phillips, give Katrina Phillips a big hand in the back. And we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Even if you're, that's a third party, that means like if your landlord, somebody saying you're dispossessed, that you got 30 days to answer, right?
Right. So it's anyone outside.
Because he's using a third party, right?
Right. So it's anyone outside of the original creditor, the one who extended the loan or line of credit to you.
I remember Willie D and I was talking we were down our favorite place playing some music the other night, and he brought up a topic. Willie D, what was that you said about debt collection? You said what you said about you're not coughing on me, right? You're not doing Hillary, right?
Wow. Refresh me a little bit.
We were talking about that the debt collectors can't just collect anywhere. They have certain, they have certain laws in New York.
Right, about, sometimes they'll come and they'll try to like, you know, hold your thing on lien and all that. They not even have license.
Tell us about that.
You have to be licensed.
Right, thank
That's
you.
it's good that he caught on to that because outside of the federal law, outside of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, each state, well, not some, let's just say some states may have additional laws outside of the federal law. So it could be a state or local law. So for example, in New York City, a debt collector has to be licensed to collect debt from citizens of New York City. But then you may go to another town or village inside of New York, and that area doesn't have a local law. It just has the federal law. So this spans out through some of the states in the United States. It doesn't apply to all, because in order to collect debt, it could either be where you have to get a license, bond, or pay a fee.
But New York City, they do that, right?
But New York City is a license, bond, yes. So that would be a third-party debt collector, or what's referred to as a debt buyer. They make money off of delinquent debt. So basically, I refer to it as recycled debt. So say, for instance, debt collection A agency wasn't able to collect on the delinquent debt, then they'll turn it over to collection agency B. So it's basically like it's being recycled. But the problem with that is, most of the times, these debts are being sold with little to no information. 123 ABC Street 3 years ago. So then, let's just say the creditor sells the debt. Then, between that time, you may have moved. So what's happening is, the debt collector who purchased the debt is going after you at the last known address. And a lot of times, a lot of people are being called into court, but they don't know that they had to go to court. So that's referred to as sewer service. The debt collector will allege that the process server served you, but in fact, the process server did not serve you. So a lot of times people find out that they have a judgment, which is referred to as a default judgment, meaning that you did not appear in court. So that goes back to what the gentleman had said. So a lot of times they'll go after your property, you know, put a lien on your property because you didn't appear in court. So it's just like, almost like you ignored the debt. But it's like you ignored that you had to be in court. But the problem is, a lot of consumers never knew they had to be in court. That's happened to me a lot of times.
You know how to handle it, though. You said, but what you do, you said something like they advertise on the radio. They talk about many times about you go to these people and they fix it up for you. You could fix it up yourself, right?
Yes. Oh, you're referring to our conversations about credit repair companies, because according to the Federal Trade Commission, which is the largest agency that advocates for consumers, according to them, and a lot of people have experienced this, not so good experiences with credit repair companies. A lot of times they have a bad rep and being known to take your money and not be able to provide the service that they allege to provide to you, like to clear up your credit, and it's actually something that you could do on your own, clearing your credit.
Don't you get a report? You can get a report once a year on your credit, right?
Yes, you can get a copy each year for free from there's 3 credit bureaus that you can actually get them from, and do a comparison, of the credit reports that you order to see what's on your credit.
Very valuable information, and we gonna bring it back again because I think that we need that, as a consumer, as consumers, and we going through some. We gonna go through. I mentioned no names. That we going through some. Cause I don't want to date my shows. We're going through. But every year is a difficult times. You have to have it. You have to have it together, though, right? On that note, I'd like to thank. What's that name again? This is my buddy.
The Fair Debt Collection Practices Act.
It's
very important.
And make sure they don't gut this out because your goose is cooked. You don't have to worry about Thanksgiving turkey because you're going to be the turkey. Thank you so much. Katrina Phillips. Give Katrina Phillips a big hand. And we'll be right back. Tell us a bit about this book.
Okay, well, for starters, it's a memoir. It starts from as early as about maybe 6 or 7, all that I could remember, and it was something that I needed to do to heal. So what I did do was did a timeline. I got to the point in life where I ran out of outlets. I ran out of things to do to, one, challenge myself, and 2, avoid the things that were so obvious that continued to hurt me. So one day I decided to just put it all out on paper, write it out on paper to revisit, and it was the most painful and most difficult thing that I had to do.
How painful was it?
It was extreme. I mean, one, it was mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausting, but the pain had cut so deep, and it was almost as if it just happened yesterday. You know, it was just like the wounds were, the pain was suppressed, and the wounds were kind of mended, or just like it was Band-Aid.
One of the wounds you mentioned was that you saw your mother getting stabbed. Right?
Yes, yes. I saw my mom get stabbed to death when I was 9 years old. And I was one of those kids that, you know, walked the floors. I would hear a noise, and instead of being a child, I would, you know, and stay away from harm. I walked into, you know, the room where this guy was stabbing her to death, and I didn't know that he was stabbing her. And when I walked out, I, you know, just screamed, like, "What are you doing to my mommy?" And he was sick and under the influence, and he just turned and he stabbed me as well. And it was just so interesting that God stepped in. You know, in that moment, of course, I was too young to know, but in hindsight, you know, trying to get through and get by and just continue to move forward in life, because when she passed, it was almost as if everything changed.
How old were you when this happened?
I was 9 years old.
9 years old.
And, you know, it's like my family, everything was generational as well. It was in South Carolina. We came here. It was almost as if, you know, it was so tragic that no one wanted to talk about it. You know?
No one?
No one. My family. You know, my grandmother raised me, which was my maternal grandmother, and, you know, they stuck me in counseling. So it was just like, shh, we don't talk about those things at home, but we'll have you go to counseling to talk to someone that didn't look like me, you know? That was the most difficult. That was another difficult piece, where it's like my family don't want to talk about this. They tiptoe around everything. It's like, what am I to do? But because it seems that I woke up and everyone continued to move forward, it was almost as if I had to train my own mind to kind of forget that what I saw. Or
how was the counseling?
the counseling then wasn't well received, because I didn't know what I was supposed to get out of it. You know, I didn't know that I needed to be a part of this process and helping myself. And they only listened. You know, it was like they sat and they listened, or because I wasn't, you know, comfortable with talking to them, they would actually just give me a piece of paper and tell me, draw what you feel. You know, write down something. You know, so because they were trying to get you to connect. But it was, again, I just shut down. I went into like this mute period of time, and I was in like junior high school, which it was interesting because it was almost hard for me to just get close to anyone. You know, that was the first person that I've ever seen pass away, and I just thought that, you know, they told me that my mom was sleeping. Oh, she'll be back. She's gonna be back. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, when is she coming back? So again, it was almost as if what you thought you saw, you didn't see, but your life changed drastically, and we have.
But this is right before you.
Absolutely.
He went through, you know, like this is if I'm gonna read the book, and I advise everybody to read the book because we bring you back, and you know when we do, you know, we have another round of Care Sisters. You say you were molested too, right?
My aunt, my mother's youngest sister. It was just interesting because she was the last child, and she was so envious that my mom had me, and now I became the baby in the house, that she did, it just seems as if even growing up, she just did so much to try and like hurt me. So she would, you know, my mom would ask her, like, you know, take her to school, put her on the school bus, and she would tell my mom that I got sick. You know, we missed the bus, and then she would like play in my vagina, and I didn't know it was wrong until I saw my, you know, I had this little male friend, you know, my mother's good friend, and one day she saw me humping him, and she beat me. And I'm just like, but what did I do wrong? You know, again, it wasn't that, you know, you see this and let's sit down and let's talk about it. You know, where did you see this? Where does this come from? It was just, you got beat, you know. And once it continuously happened with my aunt, and I spoke to my my mom about it, she then had the conversation with my aunt. But it was never like a conversation. It never, you know, came back to me like, this is wrong and it shouldn't be done. It just ceased with her. But then there was also like, you know, the uncles that were doing it too.
Was the uncle molesting you too?
Well, they were doing it to others, you know, in my family, like my other little cousins. And then there were like friends of the family, you know. You had like the older men that are around and they come and hug the little girls or put them on their lap, and you know, it was just those things. And I don't want
to sound like this is just like the late Jimmy Durante said. Everybody wants to get into the act.
Yeah, and it's almost as if, you know, as a child, they say, you know, I grew up in an era where it's like a child should be seen and not heard. So it's like, you know, anytime I voiced how I felt or what was going on, it was just like, no, you're lying, you know. Also,
too, you fell into alcohol abuse too, right?
Yes.
And how'd you fall into alcohol abuse?
So it was when I was 9, or even just growing up. It was my mom and all of her siblings. She has 2 sisters and she had a brother. We all grew up under the same household. So it was like, once my mom passed, I still had at least one of my aunts, which I was very close to. She passed away when I was like 19. So getting through her passing away was almost as if everyone, within like a 2 or 3 year span, I've had deaths. It was like either, you know, after my mom, then it was my grandfather, and it was my grandmother, and it was just so many different people that were passing that it was like I couldn't get a breath. You know, I couldn't catch my breath from the deaths. But once my aunt passed, it was just like there was nothing else to live for. You know, but that kept coming into my head that the day everything happened, you know, when my mom got stabbed to death and I got stabbed, it was the act of my mom.
What's the person in the stabbing of your mother? Did the person ever got caught?
Yes. So he went away. He got arrested. He was actually hiding out in the woods for about 2 days.
This is in South Carolina?
This was in South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. He was hiding out in the woods for about 2 days. They finally caught him, and he confessed. He killed 2 people in New York, 2 people in Boston.
Wow.
And he came down south. He was a fugitive on the run. But, you know, again, that's sometimes the Southern way. Yeah. They have problems in the north. Yeah. They send them to the south. Yeah. You know, and he was a fugitive, and, you know, he was still under the influence, and I guess that was his mission. He was just on a mission. So he confessed to the murders and, you know, and the rape of one of the people he killed as well. And he said he was under the influence, and if he had the opportunity to do it again, he would. So that was something, one, that I used to think of. So the paranoia was like huge. So I felt alone. At that point when my aunt passed, I just felt completely alone, and there was nothing else to do but just continue to suppress the pain. So alcohol was like the way. I went to therapy. So there was times when I chose therapy, when I got to a point where it was just like, it was just too much. It was just emotionally overwhelming, which I was working, I was going to school. My grandmother was, you know, they were raising me. She was always an alcoholic. My uncle was mental. He was always on drugs. My brother was a drug dealer. Like, it was just so much.
Your brother was a drug dealer?
Yes. And it was just always so much that that's when I got to the point where I was like, okay, I need therapy. You know, I went in, I seek therapy at work, I seek therapy outside, and they just wanted to prescribe drugs.
Oh my God.
So I was just like, no, I was comfortable with alcohol because I knew that it would come out of my system. But with the drugs, that was something totally different that I was not ready to introduce to my body.
Because sometimes drugs can alter your mind.
Yes. I was scared.
Yes.
So again, it was just that ringing in my head. Something was like, you know, kept telling me it's a purpose for you being here, because my mother got stuck at the door trying to take the chain off, and that's why he was able to attack her the way he did. But she was backed up against the door trying to protect herself, and when I came along, it's more like she's here back up against the door shielding herself. The door behind her, the chain is jammed. I am this tripod here, and he's in between us. When he turned to stab me, God stepped in because she was able to get that chain off, grabbed me from behind him, and jumped, and we ran for help. So that's why I said I always knew that there was a purpose. I always knew there was a reason. I went through a suicidal phase as well.
Oh.
But because I was never a pill popper, and I didn't want a slow death, I chose to, one, do the alcohol. And with all of those, the thoughts of suicide, it was just a thought. I didn't feel, again, I just felt like something was telling me there's a purpose. And the fears of jumping in front of a train. I would walk into a train station, and for some reason those days the trains would come in slower and slower, you know. Sometimes
usually roaring.
Right. So that's why I was like, it was something that was drawing me. That's like, no, you have a purpose and you need to figure it out. You need to find it. You need to find it. And I went on. I was 21. I remember 20 and 21, where it was like heavy. I would go to work. I was a functional alcoholic. You know, I would go to work, go to school, go out for drinks, come home, shower. Didn't want to sleep because I suffered with nightmares. You know.
You know, I'm not going to let too much the cat out the bag because we plan to have you come back at a later. As I said, I'm definitely going to read this book. Anybody, you know, who's watching, the social medias on the cable or even in the audience, what made me different, you know, like everybody, I'm not trying to be funny, everybody, his brother comes, oh, well, you know, I had this book, you know, I said, but what's the angle, you know, but I'm going to tell you, everybody don't touch my heart. Okay? Everybody come with their books, they don't touch my heart all the time. But you touch my heart, you still, even my producer said he loved those shoes.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh boy, you still have that southern charm.
It's deep rooted.
It's deep. What part of the South you from, girlfriend?
Orangeburg.
Orangeburg.
Yeah.
That's how they had the Black College out there too.
Yeah, South Carolina State.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went back 2 years ago.
Yeah, how was that?
To
Yeah.
look for my family because again, I was scared to just revisit. I was scared to face it, you know. And again, upon writing this book, it's so raw. I had to dig deep and pull it all out. Like I couldn't leave out anything because then it would have, you know.
As my late ex-mother always said, you had to pull out your woman guts and write this book.
Yeah, I had to, and that's why I said it was so painful because I had to revisit and relive it. I had to be in it, and once it was done, it was so liberating. So it's such an, I personally feel it's so motivating. It's so inspirational.
You still struggling though too, right, girl?
I struggle in a lot of ways. It's not as bad as it used to be, you know, because again, I feel like it's still fresh. It's still new. I don't have nightmares anymore. And when I do have, you know, dreams that are a little off, like I tend to defend myself in my dreams, which is different, which is new. So it's almost as if I'm standing up and defending myself. Oh, okay. So it's so positive. Like I said, it's empowering. You know, I never wanted the charity case. Like my friends read this last year and they cried. And I felt bad because I'm like, what type of friend am I that I wasn't able to be comfortable with telling them this? And in their mind, they knew that I didn't have parents. They just didn't know why.
Wait, they were crying?
Yeah.
I don't know. I might be crying.
I really wish that I could have helped you. And I was just like, again, I wanted organic relationships. That's what I wanted, you know? I
would like to thank you so much for joining us today on the LMS show. What's that name again, everybody?
Lakeisha Baker. And
check out
Diamond in the Rough.
Diamond in the Rough, everybody. And we'll see you soon on the LMS show.